to hear from Mr. Levosi himself before making an informed, objective decision on the club's future involvement. They also believe it to be important that an objective reassessment should be completed, the value and viability of the growth of rugby league into the North American market to help advise the board decision on Toronto. Well, there's a lot to unpack in that. Where do you want to start?
Shall we start with the bits that aren't quite in that press release that's mostly lifted from the Super League statement? And that's the reports that Castleford, Wakefield and Huddersfield have already said, no mate, we're not having you. So provincial West Yorkshire doesn't want Toronto. We understand one of the ones most in favour of keeping Toronto is big city West Yorkshire in terms of Leeds. We don't know for sure. Well, we don't know for sure that that's true, but it's been what's widely reported. We don't know.
It's not a million miles away from what you expect, is it? If that is the case,
we don't know the position of all the other clubs, but the understanding is all those that were on the fence, which is pretty much the rest of them. The Hull sides were kind of falling off into the Cass Wakey side of the fence, and the Wiggins and Warringtons and St Helens were maybe being a bit more willing to open an ear up to the Leeds side of the fence potentially. But ultimately, this is saying that what Toronto and what Levosi provided this week was not good enough. But for Toronto fans, this is all Robert Elston is trying to make sure we don't get back in. Well, that's exactly the opposite. Even if he's not supportive of you, he's not tried to push through a vote to push you out. So stop that mindset. And then
he's facilitating a process which allows you to have another chance.
Yeah, and then the mindset from all the people who don't want Toronto in at all is like saying, "Oh, look at Super League trying to make it easy for him because they want to try and keep them in." Well, it's kind of like neither of those two extreme realities are actually the truth here. And what worries me about it, and I'm going to surprise some people, Tim, but I'm moving away from my full support of Toronto being back in the competition a little bit, just because I'm worried. And I think it's been right to question whether a North American sports team, one of them in our competition, works, etc. logistically. But at the same time, it's been right to think, but what are the opportunities out there? We've got to give it a go. And also, we were kind of saddled with it anyway, so why make the worst of it rather than the best of it? But the problem is the worst of it has been Toronto pulling out. And when they come with a business plan that, frankly, from what I've heard, has factual mistakes in it, simple factual mistakes, and then also grossly overestimated figures about.
And from what I've heard as well, that Levosi was doing one meeting from his car, and it just sounds like they're not putting in as much effort as they could be to getting this, to be as professional as they could be, to prove they are an organisation that has changed from the previous incarnation of the organisation, but B has learnt, and as part of that has learnt from its mistakes, and is a serious force to be taken seriously. And to me, it sounds like they're doing it all a bit half-assed. And I hate to say this because I think I'm coming quite similar to you. Actually, I'm moving further towards the middle. That despite when I went out there, I had a brilliant time and it was a great. There is a certain, and I experienced it at the game. There is a certain arrogance about the club and that setup. And it was shown chiefly by Eric Perez when he was there. It was shown a lot by Brian Noble, and a lot of the other behaviours and actions, and the whole thing with not paying their creditors and that kind of thing, that demonstrates a certain arrogance. Now, you've put yourself into a position where you need people to do you favours to come back in. You need to, show some humility at this point, unfortunately. And I do feel sorry for the fans that have been put in this position, but at the same time, they need to be careful that they're not going around winding more people up.
I think there's kind of I think the staunch, the ludicrously staunch anti-Toronto just 'cause the foreigners kind of mentality is being far. Now it's being far.
It's too far. Yeah, it's too far away for me.
We're a big city, you're stupid little towns kind of response, and people need to stop all the bickering, all the arguing. Toronto fans need to stop saying Hull KR won't pass these tests that they're being asked us to pass, because do you know what? Hull KR have existed for 100 years.
And also,
you haven't, and so people have to respect each other's point of view. But then Hull KR have to realise that, hey, instead of being scared of a team coming in and taking our place, or however you might, and I'm just using this as a broad example. Please don't say that I'm, but they can come. Hull KR should be looking at an opportunity here, because not every North American Rugby League sports fan is going to be a Toronto Wolfpack fan.
No.
So you can look into those markets too. That's what this kind of credibility stuff, viability stuff that the Super League are doing, I think, is being done. But in reality, Toronto need to have. This is my worry. Toronto should have done more to prove this. It's fantastic that you can say that you've had mentions by massive social media accounts of worldwide brands like the Toronto Raptors, who won an NBA title in the last couple of years. That's fantastic. The Blue Jays, who've been at the top of their game as well in the last few years, in the last 5 years. Fantastic. But in reality, that hasn't got you a TV deal. It hasn't got any other clubs at the moment, any other extra sponsorship deals, and it hasn't got the Super League extra sponsorship deals. No matter what Sonny Bill did in terms of media exposure, it didn't bring any money in yet. So this is what we all need to work together to figure out. If we think the North American market is still going to bring us more money, then find ways to maximise it, and clubs need to have that in their, they need to have that opportunity out there in their mindset when they're making these decisions. It can't just be on. The decisions can't just be made on losing out on a few £100,000 next year, right in this immediate situation. It has to be on what does that mean for 2022? What does that mean for 2025? That's what the responsibility of the clubs, and I hope that they can come to something sensible there, rather than just thinking about, I need that extra few hundred, like 100,000 next year. But similarly, Toronto have to do more than just package it up in something that looks nice. Levolsi can't be following bad advice, and it seems like he is. If he's gone into this business plan saying 2 million central revenues, by the way, if Toronto are back in, absolutely they should have central revenues, but that money should be used to pay the costs of teams travelling over. However, it's not going to be 2 million because of the rebates. And how do they not know about the rebates if they're under, who's advising him? Bob Hunter must have been part of those conversations about the rebates, because that all was discussed. Oh, he wouldn't have been, would he? Because they're not part of the TV deal. But he must have been aware, and he surely should have been making sure he had the ear, or people had his ear, that know about this stuff, so that when they make the presentation, they're getting basic things right. Don't say you're going to get 9,000 adults in when, we already know that lots of their tickets are bought by kids or given to people or whatever, and you don't want just 9,000 adults going. You want the next generation coming through as well. Have more of an eye on things. It's not just a charm offensive.
One of the problems with where they play at the moment, and one of the things you'd be looking at in a business plan, is there isn't a lot of growth capacity there. They're pretty full in terms of the number of seats they could really actually sell. So there is a problem from a commercial point of view, that and it's a question, it's not me having it, are they saturated in terms of what they can achieve? And probably in the current stadium they've got and the current infrastructure, you'd be leaning towards yes. So where is that extra revenue going to come from?
And also, there's other stadiums that will be available in March. The winter be what it is, there's other venues in Toronto that hypothetically could be available in March if the club could be that successful. So these things can be worked on. I still want the sport to expand. I still want, I'd love the idea of a Super League team that has 2 French teams that are both successful. I love the idea of a Super League that has 2 or 3 North American sides in, but that there's a strategy for what that filters down into North America. We can't just have a system where every idea of expansion in North America now is going to be another club in Super League. That doesn't
which
work
is 12 lads, which is 12 lads from Lee and a token Canadian,
which is what
or
I mean.
12 lads from Cass and a token American. It can't be that. It needs to be a blend of, yes, you're going to need experienced players to get you off the ground, but there needs to be a pathway and a conveyor belt where Torontonians, Canadians, Ottawanians, New Yorkers are coming into those setups in the medium term.
But then there also needs to be a vision from the Super League clubs to see how they can then go and basically hit other American cities to sell their brand to those other American cities as an opposition almost to the Wolfpack. It can't be that we try and have a saturated North American situation. Now, then there's all the problems with how this pandemic has affected things, which is always going to be a worry until we've got a clear handle on it, which, our government certainly don't. And I don't know about the rest of the world. I doubt it. But yeah, so I've moved a bit, because I was hopeful that this new ownership group would be more convincing, that there wouldn't be these things leaking out that sound off, that it wouldn't just be people saying things that are untrue. And I'm talking about Brian Noble saying all the debts were paid off. No, they weren't.
Yeah. I mean, that's...
Or Brian Noble saying the squad was built right. No, it was not.
And that's rewriting history to paint himself in a better picture, to be frank. And we haven't, to be clear on this, we haven't talked about this before the show. This is just a conversation that's happening right now. But, I'm of a very similar view. And, like I said, there is an arrogance there that I experienced when I was there at the very first game, of that they expect everybody to sort of bow down for them, and you're being part of something, you're not running it, so you need to remember that. And I had also hoped that a new ownership group was going to look very quickly to distance itself and go over and above to be whiter than white and show more humility, show more acceptance of the position, and accept that the wrongs that were done and move on.
And I think
and
they've
say,
tried
this
to
is
do
how
that.
we're going to run.
They have tried to do that, but when Mr. Lavolsi comes out and says all of those things, but then ends his press conference with, "We're still going to try and sign all the best players and be winning the competition." I'm not saying don't say that, I'm sorry, I'm not saying don't have that ambition, but I'm saying at the moment, Castleford, Wakefield, they don't want to hear you telling them that I'm going to buy your players because I've got more money than you. What they want to hear is, I'm going to strengthen your competition by bringing more money into the competition. Don't say the rest of it at this stage.
Yeah. what you want to hear is, you're going to get your highest gate of the year when you play us.
Yeah.
Which for a lot of teams, that is a fact that they would. So
yeah, or your broadcasters have so much interest in us that we're going to make the brand of the competition stronger.
Or there's more likely that you'll get Cass against Toronto on TV than Cass against Huddersfield.
Even Wakefield, sadly, when it's a derby and stuff. Cass against Wakefield's less likely.
Well, exactly, yeah. But, with Toronto, for all their faults, have been good for TV because of the soap opera element to it.
Yeah, there's been lots of good publicity as well as the bad publicity as well. It's about now showing that you can harness the good publicity and not create more bad publicity. And I just think that presentation on Friday hasn't convinced people enough. And I'm glad that the Super League board are taking this seriously, looking into it properly, rather than shutting the door on them at that stage, because there is something there that could be worked on if everyone was on the same page, and it's working towards that now, and giving them a bit more time is a positive step for me, because the more these clubs work together, the better. Yeah,
and like you said, I mean, the objective in the next 3 years for every Super League club is the same. It's survival. With everything going on, it's just about hanging in there now. And Toronto, it's no different. It's not about being flash and say you're going to win everything. It's about putting a team on the park in February. It's about putting a team in the park the year